All right, here are my top 12 books of 2025 so far. These books haven't all come out in the year 2025, but the ones that I've read so far. I think I'm at about 40 books. Some of them I've done reviews on for the channel. I think all of these from this stack I've done, but there are some that are, just I just don't add them to the channel. But here are my top 12. Now, I raved about some of these, and they may be further down the list than they would have been initially, because sometimes things just need to simmer. And while, sometimes you go to a movie and it's like you want to talk about it the whole way home, and then by the time you're home, you're not even thinking about it anymore. Some of these books had a major punch at the end, but the more time goes on, I think about them way less. So here is my list so far, and I would say that probably my top 5 or so could be interchangeable in being in that top 2 or 3 spot, and then the rest, I really enjoyed all of these books that are on this list, and I would endorse any of these books, I think. So 12. I was going to do top 10, but I figured I'd do a couple honorable mentions. The first being I didn't want to do any rereads on my top 10, but I enjoyed this as much as any of my books this year that I've read, and that is Memories of Ice. Even better the second time. I probably enjoyed it as much as any of these books. It would be in my top 1, 2, or 3. I think people should at least get to this book in the series before really deciding to bounce from the series, unless you just hate it from the first book and the second book. But I think from this point on, you jump into this book knowing some of the characters. You're not feeling as, lost. There are more good versus evil things to grasp onto and know kind of who you're rooting for, and I think it's just great. So that's Memories of Ice. I will read this again, I don't know how many times in my life, but I'm doing the reread of number 5 so far, that being Midnight Tides, and I just love this series. I think it's the best ever. My number 11, which would also be an honorable mention, only because I didn't love all of the characters as much, but I did love the philosophical journey of what we get, and that is with Lord Falsbane in the Thomas Covenant trilogy. Again, I didn't love all the characters, but as far as what we get with this character, who has all these reasons to be bitter and gripe, and he kind of seizes on some of those, but some of the things that he's choosing to be bitter about are very self-inflicted. So a lot of this book has to do with this character who, even though terrible things has happened to him, and he has all these olive branches to kind of not be that way anymore, just chooses to kind of continue in the bitterness, and it makes you kind of self-reflect on maybe some things that anyway, it is a fantasy book, and the story is great. It's interesting. It's like a portal fantasy where he's here in this regular world and goes into this other world. He has leprosy. He goes into this other world, and like suddenly he doesn't, but he still kind of acts in a way that if you knew you were going to die soon, maybe you would give yourself more allowance to kind of be that way. But now that his life has changed, he's kind of still holding on to that, and it's interesting to see how the people around him respond to this guy. So yeah. My number 10, which I'm so surprised this is my number 10. I was thinking maybe as I was reading it, I was thinking it was going to be my number 1 or 2. I certainly finished it and thought that it was going to maybe be, but I was really soured by the second book, and that is Guy Gavriel Kay's Sailing to Sarantium. More and more, I've just found as a reader that, not that I like young adult types of things, but I'm not so keen on overly dark and I don't know. I just, I kind of like a lighter tone for a lot of the books I read in terms of the content, in terms of sexual things and cursing and stuff. And I read a bunch of books with any of that stuff, but often I'm thinking about people that I can recommend this to, people like, family and whatnot. And it was just a little too much, but really great about this mosaicist who, uh, it's like an analog of ancient Rome, and he lives or he's kind of in the ancient Roman sort of area, and there's Constantinople, and he's kind of hired to go and work on this new cathedral, and there are chariot races and a million interesting things. Very competent, interesting people in this series, or in this duology. I soured a little bit on the second book, but again, it was quite fantastic. And that's just a personal taste. It's not to yuck anyone's yum. I know so many people will love this book. So another one, number 9. I thought this was going to be way higher. At the time, it was my favorite book of the year, and maybe my favorite book in a while. And at least it really grabbed me. And it is an Arthur retelling, and that is Fire Lord, where the Merlin character is almost like this elf-like sort of character who shows up in like dreams to show Arthur kind of what may come of his life. And what do you do if you kind of already know that? And that's in a lot of Arthur tellings, but this was a little bit different than a lot of the ones that I have read. It has a grittier Arthur, and the reason it has dropped so much to number 9, even though I really really loved it at the time, I don't remember a lot of the details other than a couple key moments and whatnot. I can't remember a lot of the characters other than the big named ones that appear in a lot of the books, but I did love it, and I thought it was great. Number, what is this, 8 is a sci-fi book, a really short one. It is a Philip K. Dick book. It blew my mind. It is Ubik. It is not very long. It does so many interesting things with sci-fi. Think of we have the precogs from something like Minority Report, and they kind of exist here. And remember, they can kind of see things that are going to happen before they happen. And we have other types of individuals who have uh, similar types of mental gifts, I guess you could say. And we have these agencies who use those types of people and counter agencies, and we have interesting uses of time. If you want something quick that will challenge you, not that it's hard to like follow and everything, it's kind of a popcorn, quick pace sci-fi, but it also has some big ideas and some excitement and major tension. Really great. My number 7, Guards by Terry Pratchett. This was the one that, after reading this one on a buddy read, it was just hitting so well. I bought the next few of the City Watch series, and I thought I was going to just reread them right away. I think I should maybe throw one in soon, because I really dearly love the City Watch guys. It reminds me of some of the best characters in Malazan, who are kind of those comedic duos. And you see them in a lot of movies and books like that. But this has that kind of, these bumbling guys who just want to do right, but they can't quite get in front of their own, or get away from, they keep stumbling upon their own feet and whatever. And, not literally, but it's super funny. It has dragons and wit, and it has this brotherhood that summons this dragon, and a librarian that's a baboon. And if you've heard of Discworld, then you know all the craziness. And this was The first one, my second one I read, I didn't love Mort, but I dearly loved this one, and I will continue with that. Here are my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My number 6. And this series will probably go down as one of my favorite series. I am always at about a 4.5 or a 4 for all of the books. Uh, there are parts in each of these books that are a major 5, but I haven't come away without feeling some kind of gripe about each of them, even though they are all stellar books. And the one I'm at right now is Ashes of Man. I think this makes one of the most exciting conclusions that make me so excited for the next one. I think I was always kind of waiting for the things that happened in this. I think I was kind of waiting for that next thing earlier in the series, even though, man, it's been so exciting, and I can't wait for the whole reread. I do need to read Disquiet Gods before the next one in the series. If you haven't picked up this series, don't know what you're doing, because it's great. It's great, and these books are so beautiful. I didn't pick up the Broken Binding ones because why would you when you have these ones that, in my opinion, look way better than the ones that they did with Broken Binding. So my last 5, and this could be in the top 5 probably, but I had some recency bias, and I decided to go into the Star Wars EU as something new. I was kind of getting, this is when I was kind of getting a little fatigue with overly adult sort of content, and I thought I need something a little bit lighter as kind of a go-between for a little while. And I chose to go to a number of different Star Wars books, and the one that I like the most so far is Heir to the Empire, first in the Tron trilogy. This is a true sequel in a lot of people's mind of Return of the Jedi. This, in my view, is the real Episode 7, and I am just so thrilled that I've picked up the Star Wars EU. All of the books have just been fun, and just what I want to get out of not a filler book, because that kind of puts down that kind of I don't mean to sound like it's not. They have been good books, a lot to think about, but they have been just fun escapism more than deeply philosophical things to kind of chew on. But I do really like them. So that is my number 5. I wasn't sure about these last 4. All of these, in some way, could be in my top 2, maybe. But I think I'm happy with where they're at here. My number 4 is Elric of Melniboné, and that is the first of the Elric saga. I've brought out a whole bunch of old fantasy from the 1970s and 80s, and I missed a bunch of these. My friends were reading them, and I was busy, playing basketball and going outside, and I wasn't much of a reader in my junior high days, except for I did comic books and stuff like that. So I've been going back and remedying some of the old things that I missed, and of all of the things of that era so far, I really, really like the world building of Elric of Melniboné. And I think there was so much to chew on. I can't remember how many books, maybe 6 books. I'm only on this first one. Now that I'm just holding it, I really want to get to the next one. And really, really enjoy this. And that is my number 4. If you want to kind of go into some of the things that have inspired or helped to kind of build the foundation of some of these great characters that we get in other works, then can't go wrong, I don't think, with Elric. It's one of those things that you probably should read either way if you're a fantasy reader. Now, these last three were really hard, because I think any of them could be my top one of the year because I enjoyed them all, some for different reasons, but I deeply love each of these books. So, my number three is my sci fi series that, even more than Ashes of Man, I'm very excited about this one because it feels a little more of the kind of science fiction that I generally like, something that feels a little bit more like our world, or like a future just beyond our grasp, even though there's a lot of wild stuff that happens. But, in Sun Eater, we have these Cielsen, which are these alien cannibals and like it's been tens of thousands of years or something like that. This is not that kind of far future history yet, but it is The Expanse with Leviathan Wakes. I really thought this was a exciting page turner, and this is the type of thing where on a holiday on a beach or something I would read, or wherever. I don't know why on a beach, because I generally don't go on holiday to beaches, but yeah, I don't know. This would be like an airplane book, or I could just read it anywhere and be excited and drawn right in. And again, not super philosophical, but the kind of sci-fi that I really find entertaining. So, my number two, and it's surprising because anyway, I'll get into it. My number two is The Gunslinger from The Dark Tower. This is a lot of people's least favorite book in The Dark Tower. I've read the third and a half of the series, and this by far, so far, is my favorite. I find it the most poignant and philosophical. I like the vibe of just the gunslinger himself going from point A to this next point B and C, and just this idea of this almost Isaac and Abraham sort of retelling with the gunslinger and this boy Jake, and this man that they are following, and there's just this intrigue, and it's so interesting. Now, unfortunately, I am on Wizard and Glass, and unfortunately, again, that is going to be a DNF for me and for the whole series, which is surprising because I really liked book one and book two. It was a major step back for me, but I gave it a chance still. And just the more I get into the series and Stephen King himself, I just can't stomach going forward anymore with the series. And again, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum because, people adore this series and adore Stephen King, but man, I just can't take him anymore as far as the writing and the type of content and stuff. And so anyway, surprising that it would be my number two. I'll probably read this one several times again, and if I don't know if I will ever get to the end of The Dark Tower, which is super disappointing because of how much I loved the first book, and in a way the second book, but the third book just frustrated the heck out of me, and this flashback in the fourth book I just am hating, and I just can't. I'm just not interested into it, or into it. So, or interested, or into it. So, probably some people will leave because they've been excited about me finishing, and I just don't think I can. So, anyway, my favorite book of the year so far by probably a significant margin, because it's a standalone, which is great, and I loved all the characters. I loved all the build-up. I loved each moment. It had so many great moments of payoff, emotional lows and highs and triumphs and humor and characters that you just almost cry for, or in some cases people probably would, and this conclusion that just hits you like a ton of bricks. It is The Lions of Al Rassan. It's the book that made Guy Gavriel Kay, this is going to be one of my favorite books probably of all time. It it in some ways I keep complaining about the content things in a lot of these other books. And it's in here too, but man, it's just such a good book, and I just dig his writing so much, and I will read all of his books probably within the next few years if I have my way. So anyway, those are my top 12 of the year. And what are your top ones of the year? Have there been any disappointments of the year? Which have been big highlights? Uh, I'm looking to. I'm interested in that, and maybe I'll bump some of your favorites up on my list if I already have them. So, or if they're at my library. So, I'll talk to you guys later.